I thought I would die before I clocked 10. It sounds dramatic, I know, but that's how it felt growing up in the shadow of the factories. Our world was painted in shades of grey skies choked with smoke, grey streets coated in grime. Even the air itself tasted grey. Every breath felt like swallowing a mouthful of ashes. But even with the grime and the gloom, life as a 10-year-old was still an adventure. Days were spent racing my friends down alleyways, our laughter echoing off the brick walls. We built forts out of scrap wood and cardboard boxes, pretending they were spaceships escaping the polluted planet. Evenings were filled with the warm glow of family dinners, the aroma of my mother's cooking battling the ever-present scent of smoke. We'd tell stories, play games, and lose ourselves in the world of make-believe, momentarily forgetting the greyness that surrounded us. Then, one day, I saw it, a poster, stark and ominous, plastered on a crumbling wall near our playground. The words jumped out at me, sharp and terrifying: all smokers are liable to die young. I'd never smoked a cigarette in my life, but the air, thick with fumes and exhaust, felt like a constant stream of second-hand smoke. It was like the whole town was lighting up, and I was trapped in the haze, slowly suffocating. The carefree joy of childhood suddenly felt fragile, threatened by an invisible enemy I couldn't escape. Born in smoke, raised in smoke, it was the lifeblood of our industrial town, fueling the factories that churned day and night, providing livelihoods, but also casting a perpetual pall over our existence. The early 20th century roared with progress, with promises of a brighter future. But here, in the heart of England's manufacturing belt, progress had a bitter taste. It tasted of coal dust and grime, of the relentless clamour of machinery, and the ever-present fear of the smoker's cough that plagued our community. The fear, sparked by that ominous poster, wrapped its icy fingers around my heart. All smokers are liable to die young. The words echoed in my mind, a relentless chorus of doom. I silently cursed the inventor of typography, the very shapes of the letters seeming to mock my fear. But perhaps, I thought, it was the politicians I should blame, the men in their fine suits, debating in Parliament about tariffs and trade, oblivious to the choking reality of our lives. Or maybe it was the factory owners, their pursuit of profit blinding them to the human cost of their industry. Sundays, once a time of joy and anticipation, became a dreaded ordeal. The walk to chapel, usually a pleasant stroll with my family, transformed into a gauntlet of terror. That dreadful poster, lurking around the corner, awaited my arrival like a malevolent spirit. Each step closer felt like marching towards my own execution. The sermon, usually a source of comfort, now seemed to carry a hidden message of condemnation. Were we, the inhabitants of this smoke-ridden town, sinners destined for an early grave? And even after the service, the relief was short-lived. The monster of a poster stood guard on the return journey, its message piercing my fragile sense of peace. The world, once a playground of endless possibilities, had become a haunted house, filled with invisible threats. I yearned for escape, to flee to the countryside I'd only seen in picture books, where the air was fresh and the skies were a canvas of blue. But escape seemed impossible, a fantasy reserved for the wealthy, not for the sons of factory workers like me. Trapped in my own private nightmare, I longed to confide in my parents, to confess the terror that consumed me. But the words caught in my throat. How could I explain the chilling effect of a simple poster? The way it transformed the familiar streets into a menacing labyrinth. The fear followed me everywhere. Every corner I turned, every alley I explored, seemed to harbour hidden dangers. Packs of cigarettes, carelessly discarded on the cobblestones, morphed into monstrous creatures in my imagination, their white cylinders glowing ominously in the dim light. Was this my fate, I wondered, to succumb to the same insidious force that consumed my elders? Or was there a way to escape the clutches of the smoke, to find a life beyond the greyness that enveloped my world? The fear, a constant companion, gnawed at me. Sleep offered no escape, haunted by nightmares of suffocating in a sea of smoke. Days were spent in a state of hypervigilance, my senses on high alert for any whiff of danger. I'd scan the streets, mapping out safe zones, patches of greenery in the park, the breezy corner by the bakery, anywhere that offered a momentary respite from the oppressive air. My once carefree playtime with friends became a strategic operation. Games of tag transformed into elaborate avoidance maneuvers, dodging plumes of smoke like enemy fire. Building forts was no longer just child's play. It was constructing a refuge, a sanctuary from the invisible threat. But even in these moments of distraction, the fear lurked, a shadow cast over my childhood. One afternoon, while huddled in our makeshift fortress, my friend Thomas, ever the perceptive one, noticed my distress. "You've been acting different lately," he remarked, his brow furrowed with concern. "Like you're scared of something." Hesitantly, I confessed my fear, the words tumbling out in a torrent of anxiety. I explained the poster, the smoke, the suffocating feeling that clung to me like a second skin. To my surprise, Thomas didn't laugh. Instead, he listened patiently, his eyes wide with understanding. "My granddad," he began, his voice hushed. "He worked in the mines. He coughed all the time. Said it was the dust. But then he got really sick and he died." Thomas's granddad wasn't a smoker, yet he had succumbed to the same insidious force that I feared. It was a stark reminder that the dangers weren't just limited to cigarettes. The very air we breathed was a threat. But then, Thomas did something unexpected. He reached out and squeezed my hand, a gesture of comfort and solidarity. "My mum says it's not just the smoke itself," he explained, "but all the other nasty stuff that comes with it. Chemicals, she calls them. They get into your lungs and make you sick." This was a revelation. It wasn't just the visible smoke I had to fear, but an invisible enemy, lurking in every breath. The realization was terrifying, but also strangely empowering. Knowledge, even if frightening, was a weapon against the unknown.
If you're finding this story as captivating as I did, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the rest of the journey.
A few days later, Mr. Henderson, our kindly old neighbor, found me sketching morbid pictures of smoke-filled lungs in my notebook. With a gentle smile, he sat beside me and began to explain the science behind the smoke, the harmful chemicals it carried, and the damage it could inflict on the body. "But it's not all doom and gloom," he assured me, his eyes twinkling. "Our bodies are remarkably resilient, and there are things we can do to protect ourselves." He spoke of fresh air and exercise, of healthy food and strong lungs. He even shared stories of his youth, when the air was cleaner and the skies were brighter. It was a glimpse of a world I longed for, a world where the fear of smoke didn't cast such a long shadow. Mr. Henderson's words were a balm to my anxious soul. He didn't dismiss my fears, but he offered knowledge and hope, tools to combat the darkness that threatened to consume me. And in that moment, I realized that even in the face of an invisible enemy, I wasn't alone. The clatter of desks and the drone of the teacher's voice faded into a muffled hum as a familiar haze filled the classroom. The coal-fired stove, our only defense against the biting winter chill, coughed and sputtered, spewing thick smoke that mingled with the stale air. It was 1938, and the world outside was teetering on the brink of war. But within the confines of our small schoolhouse, the most immediate threat was the invisible enemy that clouded our lungs and stung our eyes. I struggled to focus on the lesson, the words on the chalkboard blurring through the smoke. A persistent cough rattled my chest, a constant reminder of the insidious particles invading my body. Headaches, once a rarity, had become a frequent visitor, leaving me drained and irritable. Even playtime offered little respite, as the fatigue clung to me like a leaden cloak. Mr. Davies, our teacher, a man of sharp wit and keen observation, noticed my struggles. His gaze lingered on me a moment longer than usual, his brow furrowed with concern. One afternoon, after dismissing the class, he called me to his desk. "Lad," he began, his voice gentle, "you haven't been yourself lately. Something troubles you?" Hesitantly, I confessed my fears, the words tumbling out in a torrent of anxiety. I spoke of the poster, the smoke, the suffocating feeling that clung to me like a second skin. And now, the classroom, our sanctuary of learning, had become another battleground in my war against the invisible enemy. Mr. Davies listened patiently, his eyes filled with understanding. He, too, had witnessed the toll the smoke took on the community. The wheezing coughs, the sallow complexions, the lives cut short, but unlike others, who accepted it as an inevitable consequence of progress, Mr. Davies harbored a quiet anger, a simmering resentment towards the industries that prioritized profit over people. "Knowledge is power, lad," he declared, his voice firm, "and the first step to conquering fear is understanding its source." He pulled out a worn book, its pages filled with diagrams of the human body and explanations of respiratory ailments. He spoke of the delicate workings of the lungs, the damage inflicted by smoke and pollutants, and the body's remarkable ability to heal. But healing requires clean air, he emphasized, and a fighting spirit. He shared stories of historical figures who challenged the status quo, who fought for workers' rights and cleaner environments. He spoke of the suffragettes, their relentless pursuit of equality, and the reformers who battled against child labor and unsafe working conditions. Change doesn't happen overnight, he cautioned, but it starts with a single voice, a single act of defiance. His words sparked a flame within me, a flicker of hope amidst the suffocating smoke. Perhaps, I thought, I could be more than just a victim. Perhaps I could be a voice for change, a champion for clean air and healthy lungs. The classroom, once a source of anxiety, transformed into a space of empowerment. Mr. Davies, more than just a teacher, became a mentor, a guide on my journey towards understanding and action. And as the school bell rang, signaling the end of another day, I stepped out into the smoke-filled streets with a newfound sense of purpose. The war against the invisible enemy was far from over, but I was no longer a helpless bystander. I was armed with knowledge, fueled by hope, and ready to fight for a brighter future. The clang of metal echoed through the streets, a relentless rhythm that pulsed through the heart of our industrial town. Smoke billowed from the factory chimneys, a dark cloud that hung heavy over our lives. In the midst of this grim reality, I found solace in the pages of books, a world of endless possibilities, far removed from the suffocating smog. One day, while lost in a novel, I heard a soft voice. "You seem quite engrossed," she said, her eyes twinkling with curiosity. I looked up to find a girl with fiery red hair and a mischievous grin. "I'm just trying to escape the smoke," I replied, gesturing towards the grimy window. "Me too," she said, her voice filled with understanding. "My name's Anya." Anya and I quickly became inseparable. We shared a love for books, a passion for knowledge, and a yearning for a world beyond the smog. We would spend hours discussing our dreams, imagining a future where the air was clean and the sky was blue. One day, as we wandered through the town, we noticed a peculiar sight, a bird, its feathers blackened, struggling to fly. Its once vibrant song had been reduced to a raspy croak. "Poor thing," Anya murmured, her eyes filled with pity. Inspired by the bird's plight, we decided to document the effects of the pollution on our community. We began to collect evidence, photographs of blackened trees, sickly plants, and polluted waterways. We interviewed people about their health problems, their coughs, their wheezing, their constant fatigue.
If you're finding this story as captivating as I did, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the rest of the journey.
Our secret project grew, fueled by our shared passion and determination. We met in secret, late at night, poring over our findings, our hearts filled with a sense of purpose. We dreamed of a future where our voices would be heard, where the powers that be would be forced to acknowledge the devastating impact of their actions. We knew it would be a long and arduous journey, but we were determined to fight for a cleaner, healthier future. Together, we would rise above the smog, our spirits unbroken, our hopes undiminished. The rumble of the train was a welcome change from the ceaseless clang of factory machinery. It was the summer of '46, and my family, a rare treat, was headed to the countryside for a week's respite from the grime and smog of our industrial town. Excitement bubbled within me, a sensation I hadn't felt in years. This wasn't just a break from school or chores. It was an escape from the very air that threatened to suffocate me. As the train chugged through the outskirts of the city, a gradual transformation unfolded. Brick buildings gave way to rolling hills, and the oppressive greyness lifted, revealing patches of blue sky. I pressed my face against the window, mesmerized by the unfamiliar landscape. Fields of emerald green stretched as far as the eye could see, dotted with wildflowers of vibrant hues. Cows grazed peacefully, their bells tinkling like music, a stark contrast to the cacophony of our town. We arrived at a quaint village nestled amidst rolling hills. The air was crisp and clean, a stark contrast to the thick smog that perpetually cloaked our town. I took a deep breath, savoring the sweetness of the air, a sensation I had almost forgotten. For the first time, I saw a sky unmarred by smoke, a canvas of the purest blue. Clouds, like fluffy white sheep, drifted lazily, their shapes morphing into fantastical creatures. At night, the stars, usually obscured by the city's haze, twinkled with an intensity that took my breath away. It was a universe I had only read about in books, a universe that felt both vast and intimate. Days were spent exploring the countryside. We hiked through lush forests, the sunlight dappling through the leaves, creating a mosaic of light and shadow. We picnicked by babbling brooks, the water so clear you could see the pebbles lining the riverbed. We even climbed a hill, the highest point for miles, and gazed out at the patchwork of fields and forests that stretched to the horizon. This world, so different from my own, filled me with a sense of wonder and possibility. It was a world where the air was clean, the water was pure, and the sky was a vast expanse of blue. It was a world where people lived in harmony with nature, their lives intertwined with the rhythms of the land. But amidst this newfound joy, a nagging question lingered in my mind. Why were there two such different worlds? Why were some people, like those in the village, blessed with clean air and open spaces, while others, like my family and friends, were condemned to a life shrouded in smoke? Was it fair that our health, our very lives, were jeopardized by the relentless pursuit of industrial progress? The contrast between the countryside and my hometown was stark, a glaring reminder of the inequalities that plagued our society. It was a conflict that ignited a fire within me, a determination to fight for a better future, a future where everyone could enjoy the beauty and health of a clean environment. As we boarded the train back to our smoke-filled town, I carried with me not just memories of a pristine world, but a newfound sense of purpose. The countryside had offered a glimpse of what could be, a vision of a future worth fighting for, and I knew, with a certainty that surprised even myself, that I would dedicate my life to making that vision a reality. The wind whipped at my coat, carrying with it the acrid scent of smoke. I stood atop the hill, the city sprawling beneath me, a vast expanse of grey. A thick, choking fog hung over the skyline, obscuring the sun and casting a pall over the once vibrant landscape. I thought back to the idyllic countryside, the fresh air, the clear blue sky. It seemed like a distant dream, a world apart from the polluted reality I was forced to endure. A world where people lived in harmony with nature, not at its mercy. A surge of anger welled up within me. Why should we be condemned to a life of sickness and suffering? Why should our children be forced to breathe polluted air, their futures stolen by the greed of industry? I clenched my fists, my resolve hardening. I wouldn't stand idly by while our town, our lives, were sacrificed on the altar of progress. But what could I do, a mere boy against the might of industry? As I gazed out at the smoke-choked city, a question echoed in my mind. Would I become a revolutionary, a voice for the voiceless? Or would I turn my back on the suffocating reality and seek solace in a distant land? The future was uncertain, a blank canvas awaiting my brushstrokes. Would I paint a picture of hope and change, or would I succumb to despair?
Thank you for joining me on this journey through the eyes of a young boy facing an invisible enemy. If you enjoyed this video, please show your support by subscribing to the channel and also sharing it to educate others. And let me know in the comments what you think will happen next. What would you do? Would you fight for a better future? Or would you escape the suffocating grip of the industrial age? I can't wait to hear your thoughts.